Yes!
Hey everyone, welcome back to Sequels Month the Sequel, right here on The Completionist. Back in August of 2012, we reviewed the GameCube remake of Capcom's survival horror masterpiece, Resident Evil. And this year, we're playing its sequel, the GameCube version of Resident Evil 2. It's scary. At least it was scary. Is it still scary? Let's find out. Resident Evil 2. The Resident Evil 2 we know today wasn't the original follow-up to the first Resident Evil. The original was set in a more modern-looking town after Umbrella Corp had already been closed down. It wasn't up to Capcom's standard of quality, so series creator Shinji Mikami, and I'm probably going to ruin this one, director Hideki Kamiya West, nope, I'm blocked, opted instead for a more artistically sound look and cinematic-styled story that started the wheels turning on a whole metaverse of possible Resident Evil games, on the level of Gundam or even Final Fantasy, and that's a pretty tall order. And yes, I get it, the GameCube version isn't the original or whatever, but it's on one disc and it still looks pretty good. And this one is a sequel, so hey, that's the end of Sequels Month. Sequels Month, the sequel, not the squeakquel. RE2 takes place just 2 months after the events of RE1, and the zombifying T-virus from the game's old mansion outside of the town has now spread to Raccoon City proper. We've once again got 2 main characters, Leon S. Kennedy, a cop on his first day on the job, and Claire Redfield, a college student searching for her missing brother Chris. Now you may remember Chris because Chris is one of the main characters from the first game. Upon meeting in the middle of the chaos of Raccoon City, these 2 characters get into a cop car and drive further into the town. Due to a collision, they're forcefully made to split up. But what's really bizarre is that as you get further into the game, you run into each other again, and then it's this kind of thing where you think they'd get back together. Well, not in a relationship kind of way, but in that, hey, the world is kind of ending and we should stick together because there's zombies or we're gonna die kind of way. Yeah.
Almost paradise. We're knocking on heaven's door.
Turns out there's a new virus in town called the G virus that's even worse than the T virus, and Leon's boss, Police Chief Brian Irons, had been helping Umbrella scientist William Birkin by covering for him while he developed it in Raccoon City. Now the whole town's infected and the G virus is loose. You messed up, Brian Irons. Brian Irons, Brorns. You messed up, Brorns. Blocked again. The plot thickens as Leon meets up with another woman named Ada, who's looking for her boyfriend John, a researcher for Umbrella. At the same time, Claire finds Birkin's daughter, a young girl named Sherry, who's on the run from some kind of evil monster. Bryans tries to murder Claire and Sherry, and they get split up while trying to escape. Sherry then runs into Ada, who also amazingly decided to split up with Leon. She sees Sherry for a split second, picks up a little pendant Sherry drops, and then she meets back up with Leon. Look, there's monsters everywhere! Stick together, folks! They end up meeting an older lady who shoots Leon, and Ada finds out it's Birkin's wife, Annette, who's more than a little on edge because, as it turns out, the awful monster that's chasing her daughter Sherry is really just her husband William, infected with an advanced form of the G virus. Then, Annette sees the pendant and freaks out because it has the G virus in it, and then she gets thrown off of a railing, and look, basically, the plot's really bizarre and complicated. It's kind of compelling in that melodramatic kind of way, where it doesn't really matter exactly what's happening, as long as the emotions are there. But if this were anything else but a video game, I think it'd get roasted a lot more often. Not like those awesome Resident Evil movies with Mila Jovovich. Those were awesome stories. On a more serious note, while the Resident Evil GameCube and HD remake focus on the story pretty well in comparison to the original, this one in its own way drops the ball. Remember what I said about Kanye and Mikami wanting to do this thing from the start to be a giant metaverse? They're not trying to tell a complex connecting story with fleshed out character arcs and overarching themes, so much as they're gluing together a bunch of different games with a similar theme and familiar characters, a frame for pure experience, an aid for gameplay immersion. Let me show you what I mean. Resident Evil 2 is much more successful through look and feel than it is with story, and like I mentioned earlier, it seems to be that way by choice in design. The storytelling is cinematic, and even though the writing itself isn't great, it feels like a horror movie, and the things that happen give you the sensation of living out a film. It's the same reason the Transformers ride at Universal Studios can be awesome, even though those movies are really silly. And racist. They're pretty racist. Not the people of the movie. When the original Resident Evil 2 was scrapped, it was already 80% done, and for the final version we have today, they started back at square one. That's insane! The new environments are much more elaborate and stylized than the ones we see in screenshots for the original version, and the tone is communicated very well through things like lighting and camera angle. I should probably also mention that of all the different versions of the game, the GameCube version does the visuals the most justice. It doesn't quite ever look like photographs, but I can always tell exactly what they're going for, and it affects me just as well. That's largely because of a program called O2 that was used to render each background individually, with each one taking about 3 weeks to render out. No wonder why they're impressive. Same thing goes for the dialogue. While the story itself isn't anything to sneeze at, the way the characters interact with each other is just the right amount of ham-fisted and soap opera-esque. Heads up!
Leon, that woman was... I have to talk to her.
Also, shoutouts to the voice acting. The style is a little cheesy, sure, but in a good way. Also, I'm pretty sure that they're all Canadian, so there's that going for them.
Don't worry. You'll be fine. Come on. Let's go.
A part of me wishes that Nintendo and Capcom came together for a full remake of this game. This was arguably the best Resident Evil that really propelled the series regardless of its lack of visual grandeur or voice acting. They ended up porting Resident Evil 2 and 3 to the GameCube, which to me, they're the best versions. Faster load times, the visuals and audio stuff runs more smoothly, although whenever I hear a zombie, it sounds like someone's taking out the trash. The more zombies, the more trash you've got to handle. The music in Resident Evil 2 is also pretty solid. Granted, that lame instrumentation dates the game pretty hard, but the music itself serves the setting pretty well. RE2's soundtrack is a few steps more modern than the soundtrack from Resident Evil 1. Have you heard this song from this game? This is in the game. With RE2, this one sounds more like a tense thriller from the 90s, and it's really desperate and sparse, like something Hans Zimmer would make. Makes me want to rob a bank in a clown mask or something. Actually, no, I don't, that doesn't sound very great. Let's edit that part out. Alex, Mark, can we cut this part out?
No, it's already too late. It's an instant episode.
The actual mechanics of Resident Evil 2 are almost exactly the same as the first one. The controls are purposely complex, there's limited ammo and save ribbons, and you're usually either traveling from one place to the other, exploring to find items, or solving a puzzle. Additionally, you can tell how you're doing based on your character's posture, which is a pretty clever way of avoiding something like a live on-screen life bar. Your characters are now often joined by various support characters like Ada and Sherry, which is a fun change of pace that doesn't get nearly as annoying as Ashley or Sheva do in the later games.
The president's daughter.
A lot of these things aren't so much new to the world of Raccoon City as we know it, but this is that kind of expansion I was talking about for setting up this big world and experience. The game handled well when I was younger, but so did the first one. Comparing this to the remake of the original, it's pretty disappointing. Yet I understand it's unfair to make that comparison. I mean, the most horrifying thing in this game is still the gigantic spiders, and that's all I really can say. I mean, sure, the tank controls are still here, and even though they're annoying at first, they're not nearly as bad as most people say. There's a few changes here or there, and they do sort of improve the experience, but for the most part, Resident Evil 2's actual gameplay is more of a, if it ain't broke, then don't fix it situation. Loyal fans of the first game will appreciate and understand how to play the second. The thing that's really interesting about the game is the zapping system approach it takes to presenting paths through the game to the player. You can play as both Claire and Leon, and both characters have both an A and B scenario. Yet while Claire's A scenario followed by Leon's B scenario is considered canon, you can also start with Leon's A scenario, which changes the events of Claire's B scenario. That basically creates a whole alternate version of the game. It's a whole new way of looking at replayability in an action game that I support. Games are 100% interactive, so why do we judge them by where their story begins and ends? We play them, not watch them, and the best part about this particular game is how the gameplay feeds into the story. Finding undeveloped picture frames, hidden memos, there's tons of reading to help build the experience, something that a film really can't do that well. But then again, people really liked these movies. Claire eventually reconnects with Sherry, whose mutant father Birkin has now injected her with G-Virus babies, and everyone's chilling in the abandoned Umbrella facility. Ada has also been badly wounded by Birkin, and it's up to Leon to save her. Annette is really messed up and crazy and reveals to Leon that Ada's a spy who wants the G-Virus for herself, but not before Annette can kill Leon. But before Annette can kill Leon, the Tyrant attacks. Annette almost escapes with the G-Virus, but is mortally wounded by Muto Birkin. Before Annette dies, Claire is able to get the antidote from her. Leon goes to help Sherry, and they all escape together on a train. Or will they? The boss fight is kind of a two-parter, but not really. You first face Muto Birkin before getting on the train, and you're only saved when a mystery woman, or Ada, leaves you a rocket launcher. When he catches back up to you on the train, he's morphed into an awful beast, and it's up to Leon or Claire to save the day. A few short moments of shooting and exploding, Birkin dies, and the train makes it all the way to the end of the tunnel before breaking down. The mask formerly known as Birkin makes one last attempt at killing, but he's foiled before he can ever start by the self-destruct sequence on the train. Leon, Claire, and Sherry all make it out alive, but before they can even enjoy their success for 1 second, Leon has another plan. Yikes, that song is awful. It's so awful, it's awesome. All in all, these last two boss fights aren't too tough. If you don't panic and get in a few well-placed shots with the right weapon, the rocket launcher will take care of the rest. And depending on what scenario you're playing, the game ends at different points. Claire A and Leon B are considered the most canon. Resident Evil 2 is such a clean little branching collection of short experiences that come together into a really unconventional, satisfying whole. It's like an interactive movie where things can turn out a few different ways, but you can't stop till you see all the possibilities. Proof that at one point in time, there were really different ways to weigh a game's worth against the game's length. Speaking of things that add replay value to a shorter game, Resident Evil 2 has tons of juicy and nutritious bonus challenges that help any young completionist out there grow up to be big and strong. Plus, what's extra awesome is that the stuff you get in return for completing them is really neat. Most of them revolve around beating the game in a certain amount of time and using a certain amount of items to achieve certain rankings. Now, let me be clear, in order to achieve an A rank, you'll need to beat the game under 3 hours, using only herbs and not first aid sprays, and limit yourself to 3 game saves. Also, don't use any double-slotted weapons like a submachine gun. Exceeding these will cost you points, which determine your ranking. Firstly, beating the game once each with Claire and Leon unlocks each other's alternate scenarios. Finish both of either character with A rank, and you'll unlock the Extreme Battle Mode, which kind of acts like a mini prototype version of the mercenary missions from Resident Evil 4. Within Extreme Battle Mode, beating level 1 earns you Ada Wong for the mode, and beating level 2 earns you Chris Redfield himself. Going back to the more main game-related stuff, beating a character's B scenario with an A ranking will unlock Hunk as a playable character who has a whole other mission campaign completely separate from the others. I like Hunk, he's kind of kick-ass. And finally, beating the game 6 times in a row and getting at least 1 A rank gets you Tofu. He's a man made of tofu and does the exact same mission as Hunk, except he does it with knives only. # worst GoldenEye mode ever. Other than that, beating specific scenarios at specific speeds also unlocks the Gatling gun, the machine gun, and of course, the infamous rocket launcher with infinite ammo. So much fun, but we still haven't covered everything yet. There's still one last secret. Start the game on normal mode and play the game as usual, except don't pick up any items. Just before you enter the police station, you'll find some stairs. Head down them and surprise, it's Brad! Anyone here remember Brad? Brad was the pilot from the first game, and now he's a zombie. Hi, Brad. Anyway, kill Brad and you'll get a special key. Head to the lockers in the RPD dark room and there are some cool secret costumes for Leon and Claire. For Leon, you can choose between Biker Leon and Channing Tatum from the beginning of 21 Jump Street Leon. And since Claire only has the Flaming Cowgirl costume, she also gets access to a cool new weapon, the Colt SAA. What really makes these completion bonuses special is that they're truly secrets, and there's many speculations as to which versions have more or less content in them. All in all, these are common elements found across most ports of the game. You might have picked up on this already, but the struggle on this bad boy is kind of in the medium zone. And you know what? I think it makes the game feel that much more stronger. As a completionist, I've gone through my fair share of tortured sleepless nights, busting my butt to power through painfully boring or needlessly impossible completion bonuses, but when the game is short like this, it's easy to memorize, and a little bit of work later, and you feel really awesome because you mastered and unlocked everything in the game. But it wasn't punishingly hard, and while there was some time invested into it, it's nothing compared to the likes of Hyrule Warriors or Skyrim. Those games just destroy your soul when you realize how imposing they are. In fact, the only time this really worked against the game at all was when I was unlocking Tofu, and that's only because playing almost the exact same game 6 times in a row just gets repetitive. And plus, playing as Tofu is super hard, and you don't even get anything for doing it. Also, a quick word on ranking, because this might save your life someday. Ignore posts on different various sites that say you can get an S ranking by beating this game in an hour and a half. That's actually impossible. There was an S rank in the Japanese version of the game, but the American version of the game is harder because Capcom wanted to discourage children from renting it. So A rank in the American version is equal to S rank in Japan. End of the PSA. Resident Evil 2 is one of those games that almost seems untouchable nowadays, and sadly I think the era when games were like this, short in structure, but built for repetitive gameplay and were valued properly, are close to being over. Games are put through the ringer for being short, almost beyond anything else at this point, and quite frankly, that's kind of discouraging. Do me a favor. Resident Evil 2 is a gift that keeps on giving, and you have to experience it. And even though unlocking absolutely everything might be tedious, going above and beyond the plot, at least for a tiny bit, it's absolutely essential to play. With that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of Finna-Peed-It. Finna-Peed-It. Thanks for watching today's episode, you guys. Today's episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, NatureBox. NatureBox is a subscription service that focuses on delivering delicious and better-for-you snacks to your door each month. There's, I think, over about 100 snacks to choose from, and they sent me a box, and I actually get to pick the snacks that I wanted. And yeah, I did it a while ago, so let's take a look at what I got. Barbecue kettle corn, dark cocoa almonds, strawberry Greek yogurt pretzels, jalapeno white popcorn, and mini Belgian waffles. I love waffles. This can't be good for you. This just tastes too yummy. You can actually try their snacks for free with a free trial offer that's in the link in the description below, or if you want a visual reference, here it is on my face somewhere. The cool thing about NatureBox is that it's really healthy. There's no trans fats, no high fructose corn syrup. Everything's natural, everything's fresh. And the really sweet thing is that this has really been helping us for Super Beard Bros, or Fitness Bros, because Alex and I are trying to lose a ton of weight, and this kind of stuff is perfect for what we're doing. So again, check out the link in the description below, or the link right here on the screen, and signing up for NatureBox does support the show. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you are not subscribed to our channel, give it a click right in the center right there. If you want to see last week's episode on Mother 3, which was awesome by the way, give it a click in the bottom left-hand corner right over here. And you know what? Why don't we just throw a random video? Let's do the Resident Evil remake that we did a while ago. Give that a click in the bottom right-hand corner and let me know what you think. That's all the time we've got for today, guys, so please, as always, leave your thoughts somewhere on the internet. The month of sequels, the sequel is officially over, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Now, if you excuse me, let's enjoy the brilliant sounds of the basement music from Resident Evil Director's Cut DualShock Edition. It is so bad, it's good.